What's up, everybody? Jackson here today with my little brother Chubbz.
Hello, everyone.
Today, we're going to be trying to recreate a conversation we found ourselves having while playing Stratholme in the Warmain Wallachie server, where it's frozen at Wrath of the Lich King, and we were just going through and doing some of the old content, and we decided to two-man Stratholme. While we were in there, and this is after we had watched the recent Night King just Snoke moment, and so we're feeling disappointed in that, but we're playing Stratholme, and it's significant. We'll get into it in a minute, but so I looked at Chubbz and I was just like, bro, you know what sucks? We're never going to be able to see a Lich King movie. We're never going to be able to see Arthas Menethil on the big screen.
Yep.
Because they completely fucked that Warcraft movie. And this conversation went from we were talking about the movie, how bad they fucked it up, and then it became like what we would have done if we could have made the Warcraft movie. You know, we're just playing imagination games, and it's really fun because that movie was so very disappointing, and there was a lot of things about it that I think we both dug on. But one thing that we didn't dig on were how some characters just became surface deep. Like Lothar, his whole moment with his kid felt forced, and then he bangs Garona, and that just fills one note. And it just feels like you're hitting these story beats that the character needs to have. And there's no subtlety about it. It's just brought force in your face. Like, oh, look, a really bad cosplayer. Oh, look. And the first time they get together, it's just like you can tell they're going to end up boning.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
yeah. And that's why they, made her half human and
yeah.
She was a cosplayer, was because they knew that they were going to have
now, visually,
these two, in a romance arc, much like The Hobbit, where the one good-looking dwarf is banging the elf,
Yeah.
So it's like, okay.
It's dumb. It's just like that thing exactly. That is the perfect other example. Or and I think that one's way worse. Like, I'd take Arwen and Aragorn shit 100 times over that dumbass elf-dwarf relationship.
Yeah.
Where they make,
so bad.
half the dwarfs look comical as fuck.
With, fat, plastic shit
And then
all over their
when
face.
When it hits, the third movie, all bets are off and everyone's just CGI'd.
Oh, yeah.
And that was another problem with the Warcraft movie, is I really liked all the orc stuff. And you know what? There were visually, and that's another thing leading back to, I felt I was Lothar's son.
Right.
That's another one, where we gotta have the battle with him and Blackhand at the end of the movie. And so we need him to have a reason to do that. So let's just have Blackhand kill his son and make him watch.
Yeah, in revenge for taking his hand.
Visually, that scene's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
It's very awesome. And it's set up in a way that I think's cool. Because you have Medivh holding, basically setting up a force field so the king can get away. But this cuts off Lothar from his son. And now he's got to watch his son get murdered.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks good. There's, the question of how the fuck is Lothar even able to break into it a little bit with the shield, because he's cutting into it with the shield.
Right,
and then he's
pushing through it, and then it, repels him and pushes him back, okay.
But that scene and the payoff later with the Lothar and Blackhand fight are awesome.
Oh, yeah.
The only thing about... So there was a decision to be made about obviously you're going to have a lot of CGI, or you're going to have a lot of practical effects. So there's probably, let's do it CGI, it's easier. And the thing about this is, at this point, I think that they should have just made the entire movie CGI.
Right.
I think
with how much of it was CGI after you go back and you watch it, it's ridiculous.
If you go back and watch cutscenes from Warcraft 3 that are in the context of the story, like when Hellscream goes at the demon and he gets him and he's like, Grom, I freed myself. Or Thrall, I freed myself. And Thrall goes, no, Grom, you freed us all, old friend. And then there's that, I'm fucking getting choked up thinking about it, dude. That moment as a kid, when you're playing that and you hit that point where Grom is able to gain that feeling. And this is a simple cutscene and really ridiculous looking character models with just the funniest facial fucking shit you'll ever see in a video game. And it's hits you like a rock to the heart.
Oh yeah.
That moment where you realize, and it comes through, and it's done in a little cutscene that looks dated. But that moment cut through more than any of these emotional moments in the movie, more than any of these emotional payoffs. And why is that? It's because of the context of the moments. And all of these moments felt forced. Garona killed the king. Cool.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing about Garona.
Because she has to be with the Horde.
That lady who plays her is a fine actress, and she does a really good job, and she's sexy as hell, don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, from the start of the movie, she looks like a really trashy cosplayer.
Yes.
Because there are cosplayers who do it better.
Yes.
Who do it better than that outfit. Like, I've seen cosplayers as Garona that people have posted and shit. They look more legitimate than her.
More like the Garona from the video
games.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Which, in the game, another thing is, instead of being half human, she was half Draenei, which explained why she was more human. But it wasn't like she looked like a human. It was like she had softer features for an orc. I mean, keep in mind, these are fucking orcs. They're not like pretty. They're kind of like monstrous looking.
Let's talk about the decision of why that decision was made. Well, that decision was made because Garona in the games had a relationship with Medivh. And in this retelling, they've decided to make Medivh have a relationship with Garona's mother. That is heavily implied and strongly put forth. I'm just going to say that. It doesn't flat out say that, but unless you're an idiot, you're going to come to that conclusion.
Banking on the sequel
and what he's
revealed.
Saying, what he's saying, how he went and he found a warrior people, and he's clearly talking about an orc woman that he fell in love with. And we know that Garona is a half-breed. Right. That's what they say. She's not a full orc, and so the orcs have treated her like shit. And so, by making that decision that, okay, well, Medivh needs to fuck her mom so that Garona can exist and be like a slave and be a sympathetic character to the audience and be believable when she does switch to the human side because they are more caring to her. They treat her with more respect and trust. They don't, that was the bank of the whole character.
Right.
So she needed to be a human because they wanted Lothar to fuck her, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what they wanted.
Yeah.
For some reason, they wanted to make that relationship that was the Medivh and Garona, they wanted to make that Lothar and Garona and have Medivh be Garona's father.
Right, pretty much.
I don't know why, because here's the thing. That moment with Grom and Thrall, the moment when Arthas... Okay, so let's talk about Arthas Menethil and why Stratholme is significant.
Right.
So Arthas Menethil is born a prince of Lordaeron. He's raised with a very posh lifestyle, has a lot of, basically a prince. Right. So he'd have a lot of opportunities and, privileges that other people, common man, would not have, especially in this sort of medieval kingdom. Now, Lordaeron is a just kingdom, however. His father is a good king. This is a peaceful place. This is a place that has withstood the Horde, and survived and saved basically Azeroth because of that. They
pushed them back.
So not only does Arthas also have that, he also has a very instilled in him the sense of pride and arrogance. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And a love. A very deep love for his homeland and for his father and for his kingdom. And this is made more so by his upbringing as a paladin. And paladins are basically the Jedi of World of Warcraft, one could say. The light side. They're there to balance and be a light in the darkness, hold back the undead, hold back the demonic hordes. And the Legion, right? The Legion. They're there as the last defense against the Legion of the few survivors of these beings who were snuffed out by the Legion long ago for that reason, right? And this is the last hope. So he's raised into that order with those more morality, those codes, the chivalric code, and it's encoded into his being, right? So Stratholme is a place that was given grain at the orders of Kel'Thuzad, who is the leader of the Cult of the Damned. And they have this plan through the Legion, who's orchestrating it behind the scenes. And this is deeply layered. There's Ner'zhul, there's the Lich King, there's all these things at play where it's deep. But for the surface, we're just gonna say that Stratholme was given grain that, when consumed by the populace, would turn everyone into undead fiends, beasts, ghosts, mutants. Its very design is to corrupt life and turn it against life. And so Arthas finds out about this, and since this is a kingdom, all the cities and towns and farmlands, like, it's all peasants, so they're all working towards the common goal. So they're getting distributed grain from the main dispensary of the grain, you know what I mean?
Right.
And that is where Kel'Thuzad had done it. So it's not just Stratholme, it's this entire region has been given this grain. So Arthas has seen the effect this grain has. He's had to slay numerous undead just to reach Stratholme, and he finds out that they've already been distributed the grain that evening. They've all had their evening meal. They've all went to bed. He has Uther the Lightbringer there, who is his mentor. It would be his Obi-Wan. He has Uther there. He has Jaina there, who is his love interest. It would be his Padme. And he loves her, and it's, you know what I mean? It's a back and forth that's been kind of going on in secret because she's a mage and she wants to focus, and he's a prince, and, like, he should be doing his paladin shit. And, like, so it's got some of the same elements of, like, a secret love happening behind the scenes. There's even, like, an elf guy who loved Jaina also, and there was some jealousy there. There's a lot of really good source material to pull from that already exists. So anyway, Arthas makes a decision. Let's kill them all before they can turn, Chubbz.
Yep, because he's seen people turn into the undead. He's seen children, who have eaten this stuff turn into monsters and try to kill his men. So, like, at that point, he's given an impossible decision, watch these people turn and then kill them, or, it's like a mercy death. Kill them before they can turn into the undead.
Well, also, it's a threat to the entire region because Stratholme is such a big settlement.
Oh, yeah, with a lot of people.
Yeah, and it's more established. You see really, like, dirt, like nice gravel roads and marble roads and streets and stuff in the Warcraft 3.
Right.
And so you understand that, like, this is a big place. And if all of these undead are able to be turned by Mal'Ganis, who is the other player on the scene, who is a Dreadlord
for the demonic legion, and that is, like, underneath Kil'jaeden's orders, and Kil'jaeden is under Sargeras' orders. So, like, there's an entire hierarchy within that system alone.
But you could sum up the Legion very easily to the layman by simply saying that the Legion exists as a chaotic force that wants to snuff out all life because of a scorned titan, a disillusioned titan.
Yes.
Right? So one of the Titans, one of the creators, he went evil. He took a section of him, of beings, and made them evil. He's Sauron. He's, what was Sauron's master's name?
That's exactly who
Morgoth.
he is.
Yeah, he mimics more Morgoth than he does Sauron.
He sees life as like a corruption, and the only fix to fix the universe is to snuff it all out.
Yeah.
And so, he's waging war not only with the Titans, but then he's also corrupting his own army, which is ending up the demons, which end up are just like alien races that he took and then gave them his blood or his power, like some sort of demonic ritual.
It's not only like dimensional, like aliens, like different solar
sci-fi
systems and things.
Well,
it's not only
sci-fi with the fantasy.
But it's also dimensional. Like there's tons of dimensions that you can fall through and slip through. Mm-hmm. And so Arthas makes the decision. He tells Uther to fuck off. He tells Jaina to fuck off, and he goes in and he kills all these people. And the whole time he's doing it, he's going for Mal'Ganis. He wants Mal'Ganis, and something happens in this town to Arthas Menethil that makes him think about one thing and one thing only, and that is revenge against Mal'Ganis. And when you think about what this must have been like for the young prince who so loves his kingdom, who so loves his order that he belongs to, that's about bringing light to the darkness, that's about healing life and not taking it. How hard is this, that for the safety of that kingdom that he loves so much, he is murdering innocents before it can be corrupted and threaten everything he loves. And in the process of doing so, he has to tell his mentor to fuck off. He has to tell the woman he loves to go to hell.
Yeah, get out of here. This is happening. I'm your prince, and you're either following me, or you're exiled, pretty much, because he exiled Uther and stripped him of his paladin title. Yep, stripped them of their titles. You know what I mean? And so, like, this moment is
because he's like, I'm the prince, Uther.
Yeah, but it's also like a very you empathize with his character because it is such an impossible decision to make. You know,
it's that moment where you have to decide, okay, you're doing the numbers in your head, and you are a prince, so you've been raised obviously with mathematics in mind. You know, not only that, like strategic lessons as well. So you're calculating all of these things in your head. You're thinking about the population of the town. You're thinking of the surrounding areas that you've been able to help, that you've been able to get, you know, there first and be able to stop some of those people from dying and being swept up in this swarm of undead. So you're doing the numbers. You've seen that threat, and it's just this decision that it's got to be emotionless.
Oh yeah.
In that moment where you do that, you got to be emotionless. And during that, though, that would hurt. Having never done anything like that up to that point in Stratholme.
And it shows that afterwards. It shows his personality after that event completely switched. He's gone kind of crazy.
Hell-bent on Mal'Ganis.
He's gone kind of crazy with revenge and vengeance.
Like PTSD. He's got one purpose that he's focused on, and that purpose is finding Mal'Ganis and killing Mal'Ganis.
Yeah. Real quick funny observation, though, is while running the Stratholme dungeon, what good it did, Arthas. Good job, you fuck up. You look at the sky and it's all red and burning. Everything's dead, and undead are just all over the place.
Well, it's because he came back.
This
is not Stratholme as you would have seen it after he had done that.
Oh, no.
It would have been safe for a while. I mean, they would have regained some stability when the young prince sailed to Northrend in search of Mal'Ganis.
Yeah. But that's why there's nice little touches in this dungeon, like the Nerubians, which you find out later were actually a part of Arthas's army after the events from Northrend.
He found them in Northrend. They're the denizens of the Northrend. One of the denizens. There's more like the Tuskars or whatever.
The Tuskegans.
The walrus people. Those little fuckers. There's some more, but... yeah, they were part of his army after that, and he had corrupted them kind of the same way that he was, because so after Mal'Ganis as well there's not only does he want to go to Northrend because he knows Mal'Ganis is there, but also in Northrend is Ner'zhul. Now, Ner'zhul was one of the first orcs who joined the Legion. Now, without getting too far deep into it, the Legion first came in contact with the orcs by chasing another race of beings called the Draenei, who are actually the Eridar.
Right.
But Draenei means, you were saying...
Draenei in the Eridari language means exiled ones, and so when they left their home planet of Argus and landed on Draenei, they called them, or Draenor, they called themselves the Draenei.
Yeah.
And so it was like kind of to rename themselves the exiled ones because they didn't want to, like, pretty much, they didn't want to have ties to the Eridar because of what the Eridar had become, which is essentially kill Jaden and all of his forces of Eridar, which... yeah,
basically what happened to the orcs had already been perpetrated to the Eridari.
Exactly, the demonic corruption.
And the Draenei had ran away to escape that.
Yeah.
And they landed on Draenor, where the orcs happen to be.
And the orcs at that point in time weren't really warlocks or even shadow or demonic. They were more shamanistic. And Ner'zhul was a shaman who got corrupted and his entire tribe was corrupted, but then he tried to plan a coup or something against the demonic legion.
It's because he found out that, so the way that they tricked Ner'zhul into drinking demon blood and kind of being the forefront of the scourge corruption of the orcs.
Right.
Being the forefront of that, they tricked him by having his wife. Yeah, wasn't it something to do with his passed away wife?
His
who he
wife
loved?
died, and the orc shamans at that time, I think it was in Negran, they would commune with the elemental spirits and would talk to deceased relatives and past loved ones. And it was
like a spirit journey.
Yeah, and because Kil'jaeden observed this and saw how powerful this magic was on this planet, he was easily able to come to him in the form of his wife and talk to him and corrupt him through that, because, you know, this is an orc who's used to this.
This is the great thing about the Legion, is they're very demonic. If you think of, like, demons as being cunning, like classic demon, where they, you know, like the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing you he doesn't exist.
Exactly.
They're very much like that.
Yeah, but then, like, Ner'zhul found out after he had partaken of the blood and been corrupted, and so, like, he planned a coup after that, and that was at a point where Kil'jaeden took him, and that was when he gave him to the Dreadlords as punishment, and they would, like, torture him. And through the course of all sorts of demonic magic, that's how they created him with the armor.
Yeah.
And turned him into pretty much the undead scourge.
Well, I'm not sure. I think he created the armor, and then they destroyed him and encased him in it. I think the armor was part of his coup. I'm not sure. But either way, in Northrend, encased in ice, is Ner'zhul, who is trapped in this armor. Mm-hmm. And also in Northrend, separated far from it, was his main source of power, which is Frostmourne.
Yeah.
And as the prince crosses the sea and gets closer and closer, he gets closer to Ner'zhul, who is able to reach out and convince him to hunt down Frostmourne. And so, in order to, and the ultimate goal of Ner'zhul is to gain a host. He wants a host that he can go into so that he can be just as powerful as he used to be when he had form. And his whole purpose for that is to destroy the Legion. Like, he's still hell-bent on revenge because of the corruption and everything. At the end of the day, Ner'zhul is still a sympathetic character.
Yeah.
That's the great thing about the characters.
He's just something that's not even anything close to what he resembled.
Yeah, exactly. But it's still all hell-bent on revenge.
Yeah, again, because he still has that intelligent memory side.
It's this lesson that, like, these characters that get hell-bent on revenge end up so differently than, like, calling back to Thrall and Grom. What was Thrall's whole purpose? Was it revenge against that, or Magtheridon? Did he go in there wanting to get revenge on Magtheridon? No. He went in there wanting to free his people from the demonic curse that has afflicted them since before he was even born. He inherited this problem, and growing up with his human, I guess he would be his master, since they had been subjugated and thrown into internment camps after the initial assault when they were all demonic. But a lot of orcs are born here, like Thrall, that aren't, they're just like inheriting this curse from their forefathers who made this decision after being fucked with by the Legion, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so, like, Thrall, his whole purpose is, he's just like, I want a home for the orcs. Like, I want us to have our own place that belongs to us, that we, you know, can live in peace and just live.
Right.
That's all he wants. He just wants to live. And so that's his motivation going in there. Grom, because he sees in the young war chief this shamanistic fucking of their people, this Holy Spirit that's been with their people, but reemerges in Thrall because it has to. Mm-hmm. It has to. It's time.
Yeah.
And that shamanistic, he sees that in Thrall, and so he just, having drank the blood, having reintroduced that corruption that had long ago flowed free from him, reintroducing that, under that effects, the aura of this shaman is so powerful that Grom in that moment is able to fucking take action.
Take control of that shit and turn it against
and then
the demon.
you pivot that and you look at Arthas. He wants revenge against Mal'Ganis. You look at Ner'zhul. He wants revenge against the Scourge. And they go after it by saying fuck everybody, you know? Like,
Oh, yeah.
it's not about the people
It'll
anymore.
serve
It's not
my
about,
cause. It'll serve my cause. At
And
that point, it doesn't matter.
It's just such a beautiful lesson.
Mm-hmm.
It's just and it's so beautifully portrayed. And this movie, for some reason, focuses on Garona fucking Lothar.
Yeah. And the whole scene with her, you know, stabbing the king in the back.
Yeah, it's just like...
Which, you know, that happened in the games, but it made more of an impact because, you know, she was actually controlled by demon magic because Gul'dan and the Shadow Council had casted some demonic ritual where essentially they could look at her, utter a chant, and then next thing you know, she is taken control by them.
And she was a half-orc, she was Garona half-orc, but she was half Draenei.
She was half Draenei, so at that point, don't make her like some human actress, make her like CGI, you know? But tone down the fucking facial features, make her kind of like more Draenei looking. Which is another thing which drives me nuts, is going back to this movie, that very first scene, like even the Draenei are CGI, the orcs are CGI,
the environment is CGI,
everything's CGI except for her. I could just imagine her being the only one on set,
and she's
looking
just
at
walking
things
through
like,
a green
what the
screen.
fuck?
Yeah, and it's like, you could be the best actress in the world and you're gonna come across as bored. If you're all by yourself and you're not seeing any visual representation of what it will look like, and they're just like, act like you're seeing a completely alien world and a bunch of CGI'd orcs and CGI'd Draenei. Like, that's like her whole performance. Like, she was best when she was interacting with humans. And everyone was better when they were interacting with real shit. The actors, when they were interacting, like, even that totally unnecessary opening with Lothar and Ironforge. That's just there to be like, hey guys, remember Ironforge? It's Ironforge. Like, I guess it kind of foreshadows the gun.
Right,
but you don't need to.
Yeah, you don't have to.
He could just have a gun.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to have an origin story for the fucking gun he has.
Yeah, and which, by the way, they just barely came up with this technology. What the fuck have the gnomes been doing? You're
for
slacking.
Years. Or
You're
the slacking.
Gnomes.
What about the goblins?
Yeah, the goblins too, but the goblins, I guess, could be more, you know, aligned with the horde. But, like, the gnomes live right across the street from Ironforge.
And, no gnomes, no goblins in your movie. 0 out of 10.
Pretty much everybody was CGI except for the humans and Garona.
I wanted a female goblin who was voiced by the legit Snooki.
Voiced by Snooki. With a Shaw accent.
You come from the Shaw, you fucking man! I'm gonna go smash your mother! Stupid fucking...
God.
That was kind of when that story started to mimic, like, really cheap shit. That's the thing.
Like Kung Fu Panda was a thing, so we're gonna introduce Miss Pandaria.
To be fair, though, dude, the Pandarans are there from Warcraft 3.
Granted.
But
it was legit the exact same story as, like, what was the fucking Iron Fist Netflix, like Kunlai?
I don't know.
Or whatever that... It's like some mysterious
the thing about it
dimension or something.
It was definitely the Pandarans. Well, they extrapolated on it and made it fucking Kung Fu Panda.
Right.
Like, for sure, that's what happened. But I'm saying that, like, the idea of the Pandarans was always that. Right. It was, like, a Chinese monk who drinks and, like, brews his own booze and, like...
martial arts and shit
martial
like
art,
that.
yeah, martial abilities, a staff, like, more of a monk fighting style. That's kind of how the Pandaren... I can't remember his name, but it's the... single player
in Warcraft 3,
the Frozen Throne expansion. There's like a bonus campaign that's the founding of Durotar, and you play as anyway,
he's a Pandaren monk.
Anyway. Yeah, he's a Pandaren monk. Yeah, is what he is.
That's exactly.
So
what
that idea existed, but they and you.
But
know
then,
what?
like every single
and that
one
comes
after
goblins, because goblins came out in Kata.
Yeah, and that was like they were legit.
They were Jersey trash, dude.
Yeah, just the shore.
Goblins they're Jersey trash. Bro. Sorry, everybody, to be a dick. I'm not talking about real people from New Jersey. I'm not. I'm just saying.
We're just saying that stereotype.
Those Jersey Shore trash people. That is what they base the goblins on.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so that's why I wanted to see Snooki in the movie. I mean, if you're gonna go fucking dumb and have like really bad cosplay in your movie, you might as well just have really bad Snooki cosplay.
The thing about it is, going back and looking at it, like, there wasn't a single thing that was practical effects except for the humans.
That's why
and
I'm
Garona.
saying
Like, even the elves that they showed during that council were all, like, had CGI
well, it
shit
looked practical. It was either
them.
practical, which would probably have been really uncomfortable.
But they had that lighting effect with the eyes, like how they had that, and it was all CGI. And then like,
I feel like the decision should have been made early on that the whole movie was going to be CGI.
Yeah.
I think that you sell it as like an adult animated adventure movie. Make it rated R. You show these really dark elements. This really,
gruesome scene, like you were saying earlier, about a demon like slitting his wrist open and draining it into a fucking cup.
The fell is ill-defined. You get it right away, and that's one of the most impressive shots in the movie. And I still that whole sequence is really awesome, where they show the orcs come through the portal, and then they show like the Thrall has been born and he's dead, and it shows Gul'dan drain the life from the deer and put it into him, and it kind of shows you that this is about life and death, as well as it pulls back when he's like, a new life for the Horde, and he holds up Thrall, like total Lion King moment,
fucking
bro.
Simba, man.
Hey! For the Horde! But that whole scene, that was Lion King and shit. But that sequence, like that aside, that where it pulls back and it shows the portals outlined falling into the grass, and everything in the grass just starts to die. Mm-hmm. Like that whole sequence is awesome. I love that whole opening with that, where it shows you, and that kind of that's what I'm saying. It does show you what the fell is about.
It shows you what it does to the planet.
It's life at the cost of death, and ultimately, yeah, because you're seeing that it's the cause of all the trouble on Draenor, the reason they have to find a new home. So you see that it can manipulate life, but mostly it just causes death and destruction.
And especially to the planet, where it will take the planet's own essence and almost corrupt it into like a death essence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And everything's just dead and barren.
Undead, and
there's like fell fire all over the place, to the point where there's no longer magma. And then the elementals, which is also tied into the lore of Warcraft, the elementals that are tied to each planet get corrupted and go crazy.
And that's where the shaman get their powers from, is they pull it from the elements.
Yeah.
And they're basically the elements and all these like sort of creatures in that vein of the lore. They're there to keep the balance of the planet.
Right.
And and that gets into some really deep, cool shit. But I have to say that if I was making the Warcraft movie, I would want to start at Warcraft 3. I think that you could sum up Warcraft 1 and 2, and if you really wanted to, you could do like a Netflix series in tandem with the movie release. Because here's the problem. What they did is they tied the movie up with the game. So unless you were playing, if you were playing World of Warcraft at the time that the movie came out, you're getting more out of it than you would if you hadn't. And that was a problem, because it's ill-defined, it's just like, it shows glimpses of Grom. It shows like it's just eye candy for people who can pick it out.
Right. Exactly. There's just like they brush certain terminology under the rug.
Yeah.
And then I brought this up earlier, like Medivh casts that holy magic.
Yeah.
Which holy magic was a direct response to the demons, but at the same time it was paladins, and they had to like have sort of a righteous, religious, chivalric code to even maintain the power to cast holy magic. So you brought that up, like how in the fuck is he casting
especially considering at that point in the movie they will later reveal that he's under demonic influence.
Exactly.
Which you will already know that. And that's the thing with that reveal, is that reveal isn't as cool, A, when you know it's going to happen, or B, if you didn't know it was going to happen.
Right.
It's just kind of a what the fuck?
Yeah.
Now he looks like a fucking warlock when they do their their ultimate.
Yeah.
Like, what is this shit?
And to the casual audience,
Shadow form is what it was.
Yeah, the demon form. Yeah, the warlock's
and
cast,
demonology,
which they took away and gave to the demon hunter in Legion. By the way,
yeah.
so that was fun. Thanks. Wow.
That's why we're playing Wild Main Watlicky servers.
Exactly. But still, like, that scene, if you were just like the casual audience, like people who didn't know the story or play the video games, you would be so confused by that scene. You wouldn't know like what he was transforming into. There would really be like no context there to make that moment cool for you.
And there's ways, like I just did. I think that in the beginning when I talked about the Grom, moment,
right?
Like, that moment you can still understand as an emotional moment, and you can portray that to the audience with little to no play. Arthas, when he comes into the throne room after going to Northrend and obtaining Frostmourne, and he returns with the intention of raising Kel'Thuzad from the dead so that he can eventually reach the Lich King and become the Lich King's host. With that intention in mind, and he kills his dad, I can briefly say, like, this is what happened. He went to Northrend. He went with the intention of finding Mal'Ganis and getting revenge on the man who made him murder all his, subjects, who put him in that impossible situation where it was either the risk of it was murder innocents in order to better safeguard the kingdom, or risk the safety of the kingdom and let them turn undead and then try to survive the onslaught of what that'll be like. He wants revenge. He goes there to get that revenge. Gets whispered by Frostmourne. Gets lured to Frostmourne with a very good friend, Muradin Bronzebeard, who is an old friend who's a dwarf. And they had grown up together. They had fought together. He had already been older. I think Muradin was quite a few years older. But the way that dwarfs' ages work in relation, you know what I mean?
The humans, is they obviously live longer. They kind of mirrored the D&D style
it's
of
very
races.
D&D, yes. Yeah. And so they put into that, he has to kill Muradin in order to get Shadowmourne, or Frostmourne. And Frostmourne and Ner'zhul is telling him this is the only way you can kill Mal'Ganis. This is the only way you can get revenge for your homeland.
To be fair,
this is the only way you can protect your homeland. Yeah, well, it was the only way he could kill Mal'Ganis. But it was also at that point
the cost of his very soul.
The second he takes Frostmourne, Arthas Menethil is under the control of the Lich King. Mm-hmm. From that moment on, there's still a little bit of him there, but it's twisted and it's wrong. When he eventually comes back from after coming and invading Lordaeron with his undead armies, killing off his father, killing off the elves, getting Kel'Thuzad, making it back to Northrend, and finally to the Frozen Throne. After he finally makes it there and takes the armor and puts the armor on, he's no longer Arthas Menethil.
Nah, he's like, Arthas Menethil's consciousness is shoved into a nice old prison, and Ner'zhul is now in charge.
Yeah. And I think that you could portray that without having to do the backstory of like the orcs and stuff.
Right.
But I think if you want to, you have a television series that goes through humans and orcs, goes through, Tides of Darkness, goes through and builds up to that moment where Warcraft 3 begins. And I'd have the movies also mirror Thrall. So I'd have it be jumping back from like Arthas is young and he's kind of growing up. Have that be sequenced with training, have there be like...
And have it show...
him meeting Jaina.
And have it show not only that, but like through Jaina and his relationship, kind of how the magic works.
And and that's how you introduce magic.
Mana and all that shit, because she's actually a spellcaster. She's
a mage.
Yeah, and then you show him through his training, kind of show how paladins work and holy magic, and how it's kind of tied to the religious factor, how they always go to cathedrals to pray. Yeah. And they always have like ceremonies.
And then on Thrall's end of things, you have Thrall start out young, under, Orgrim Doomhammer's kind of wing, and you have Orgrim Doomhammer teach him about the orcs' history, about what happened to his father, what happened to all the orcs.
And that's where it shows Ner'zhul too.
Yeah.
Is because he would remember all that.
And he could tell him about Ner'zhul. He
and
could tell
Gul'dan.
him, the Legion infected us. It took over us, you know, and like it drove us here under the lust for war because we had been so transformed by the demon blood. Because after they had been cut off, after the humans had closed the portal and the orcs on Lordran had been cut off from that, the orcs of Azeroth, the orcs on Azeroth were basically just like forced into internment camps. They were captured. Slaves.
Yeah. And they were still kind of slaves to the demon blood, but how it was passed down through the lineage of other orcs was the younger generation would have less control and less blood.
The thing about it is it wore off. Like it wore off. The influence was there. It would be like the equivalent of, a heroin addict who had never really gotten over it. They had gotten away from it. They had been not chipping. They'd been staying away from it. But let's say at a certain point, they're put in a situation where they have easy access to it. They go back to it. Right. So it's that type of situation. So they
Once
were
the
slaves.
Demons came back.
Yeah, and you would be able to explain that. Like you could have Orgrim like talk about the influences, and you could show his face get really like fucking have like a Frodo Bilbo moment when Bilbo kind of flashed, you know, like
goes all Gollum on him.
You could have something like that, like not as intense as that, obviously, and different,
but something to that
a visual
same
representation effect. While he's talking about the influence of demon blood to make it appear that he misses it,
right?
Because they.
But it was also a horrific
and he'd be able to explain like the way it was, like it's like you're possessed. It's demon blood, you're drinking it, you are given superhuman strength, you're able to fight through pain, you feel nothing, all you want is war, destruction, rage,
an uncontrollable bloodthirst.
Conquer, you know, kill everyone, burn it down, move on. That's the Horde, dude. That's the old Horde. That's not Thrall's Horde, but that's the old Horde. That's what the Horde was when it was introduced. It was a horde of demon-infected orcs with superhuman strength. You know, they were smart. You know, like, it's like the only reason they won is because of magic and things like that. Otherwise, and the paladins and things like that, they would have won. The orcs would have won. If it wasn't for that and being able to cut them off and heroes on the human side. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's why they introduced Durotan, and he's the orc hero to counter Lothar. And that's what it did a really good job of showing. It was like that orcs are, you know, at heart, it did show that shamanistic side, like wanting to be at peace with nature, kind of a disgust for what they're doing. Like when he's like, why does the Frostwolves not fight today? When Blackhand says that, and he's like, we prefer our
opponents armed with an axe, not little children and women, or something to that
something
effect.
Like that. Like basically, we're taking out farmers, dude.
Yeah, like these are just innocent villagers. They're
Why
not
would
even
we do
posing
anything?
a goddamn threat.
Like there's no honor in this.
Yeah.
This is like an honorless fight, you know? Because that's one thing about the orcs is they're very prideful in that way. They kind of mirror the barbarian tribes of Northrend. Or not Northrend. Jeebus. Icewind Dale. But like that, where, I mean, they can be, they fight, but they have honor. There's a code of honor amongst them. Not even really like that. They were more...
Well, it's tribal society.
Yeah, tribal society.
Right? Tribal societies all the time are warlike, but it's against other tribes. And within that tribe, there is a set of ethics and code of honor.
And there's always been tribes of people that have been more warlike, and tribes of people who had been more like nomadic in nature.
Right.
And they
where
did
the
a good
orcs
job.
were more like, we will fight, but only if we have to.
Yeah, and they did a good job of those varying degrees. And they even make the reference to like, you southern orcs. orcs. You know what I mean? Because
there were other
there's like
different
different
tribes spread
societies,
throughout,
yeah, and so there's like more the decadent orcs, and that's where like the Shadow Moon Council and that's where the Legion truly first takes hold.
Shadow Moon Valley.
Yeah, is in like the higher echelon of the orcs power structure. And they gain such a, not only are they tricking these chieftains into drinking blood in private, but they're also effective. They're more effective than the shamans have ever been. But what they're effective at is only desired because of the demon blood being introduced into the orc society.
Yeah.
So, but like, this is the thing. All of that can be summed up pretty clean. I think you can sum that up in a way through Orgrim Doomhammer talking to Thrall and like teaching him. I mean, it's a kid.
Right.
And he doesn't know. He's under the tutelage of this older orc who has seen what's happened, this hardened veteran who saw the fall of their people at the hands of the Shadow Council the second they handed over their freedom to the Demon Blood, the second they handed over their fate to the Legion. He's seen that error, and he's seen the cause of it. Now we're a broken people. We're in internment camps. We mine and farm for the fucking humans. There's no honor for us here right now. And Thrall grows up with this, and with this veteran orc instilling these ideals, and he grows up with the knowledge that we just want free people. We want to free our people. And you mirror those. Because the Lothar mirroring Durotar isn't good. Because Lothar is just the whole time a hero.
Yep.
He's just a hero. There's no struggle for him. I mean, you could argue that but it seems artificial. Like, it feels like the king in that whole bit where he's like freaking out, like, you can't trust Medivh. And fucking, they throw him in jail. Remember that?
Yeah.
It just felt forced.
Yeah.
It felt forced.
It was like just drama for drama's sake.
If you mirror those things, right? Like this, and it's just such a good fucking message about what your priorities should be. You have Thrall, whose priorities are family, freedom, being able to live and have our own thing. And, you know, he's basically the Obald Many Arrows, but way more sympathetic because he's not tainted by anything, any evil acts. He's pure, man. You know, he's born into slavery. He sees that, you know, the consequence of his father's actions, and he inherits the consequences of them. It's almost Banish in a way. You know, but like, you do this, and then you have Arthas, who's born into, you know, a prince, royalty. It's easy for him. It's easy for him to be good because he's never had to struggle to not be bad. And in that moment where he needs to struggle against being bad, he doesn't. He gives into it wholly. But it's also an incredibly tough decision. It's the sort of moment when that has to happen. It's such a hard decision to make, and it permanently affects who he is, to where he just becomes consumed with rage and revenge. And those two heroes mirroring each other without the added, like,
forced romance.
Gamora, it's not Gamora. Gamora is the other green lady from the other movie.
Garona. They both start with a G and end with Ona. So.
Yeah. Either way, half orc. She didn't. I mean, I feel like the way she was portrayed was a disservice to the overall story. I feel like Lothar, the way everything happens with him, it just felt like they wanted to show that this war caused a lot of problems, and they didn't focus so much on like towns being leveled and burning and things like that. Instead, they put in these like personal things that feel just as like out of the blue. Like, Lothar's kid is introduced, and it's just mentioned briefly that he cares and that his mom is dead, just so he can be single, so he can bang Garona later.
Which is such a forced scene because it happens right after he watches his son get murdered in front of him. That was the first thing
Yeah.
I thought when me and you were watching
When they
that
finally
again.
boned,
Yeah,
dude.
they were boning, and I'm like, yeah, I just watched my son die. Let's fuck, lady.
I just wanted to hear that horrible song from that awful Nick Cage movie where it's like, fuck the pain away, fuck the pain away.
And that scene
just put
was...
that over that scene. That's basically what that scene was.
That's what that scene was. She was even consoling him on his dead son, and that's why he was crying in that scene. But somehow they're gonna bang in that moment? All right.
Yeah, I don't know about it, but that's kind of what we would have done. We would have done that. We would have done like Arthur's story, Thrall's story, and had like
have them start them when they were kids, and you
then
grow
because
them.
then you teach them. You're having scenes with them in school that's building the world and back building
and the history.
It makes sense because they're kids.
Because they're like the conduit of the audience. Like as the kids are being explained this, the audience is getting explained.
And you make it all CGI.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
make it like a cutscene, Blizzard. Your cutscenes are fine. Your cutscenes are more than fine. I enjoy all the cutscenes in Warcraft 3 way more than I did the ones in the movie. In the entire movie. I'd rather sit down and play Warcraft 3. Warcraft 2.
It's because even though it's a minimalist...
Warcraft 2 has like way minimalistic cutscenes.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing with this movie is
because
it's minimalistic, you could add crazy more depth and still have it be cost efficient.
Yeah.
You know, it wouldn't cost as much.
And you could do a movie and television series and like a universe. You could do like this bullshit Marvel thing. You could do this bullshit DC thing. I mean, they all try it. Marvel's the only one that's pulled it off, in my opinion. And even there's dumb shit. But overall, Marvel feels satisfying as a whole. It feels like it's been consistent.
It feels like they
just
take the
all
time.
over the place.
Yeah.
But you could do one with this that would be better than the Lord of the Rings. It would be better than the Night King bullshit and that whole Snoke thing that recently happened.
Which is like 8 seasons long on HBO, which is an hour per episode.
If you would just stick to the Warcraft source material and portray it in a way that's not like they did. And a lot of it worked. I think a lot of the orc stuff worked in the movie. I think a lot of the moments between the orcs and the humans worked. The fight scenes, I felt there were some that were really dumb, but a lot that were pretty cool, interesting to watch. Overall, though, it's just sad we're never going to see Arthas.
Ever.
I wanted to see Arthas, man. I wanted him to get there. I wanted to see Thrall, dude. I wanted to see Grom.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to see what the games became. The quality of the story in Warcraft 3 is when that series stepped up its quality of delivering story and the storytelling experience. And so that's where we would start. And in my opinion, they bungled it. They Hollywoodized it. The orc looked lame.
They shot it down before it even had a chance.
And it's so sad because it had such potential to be something that you would look back on and just be like, man, I'm so glad that this is something that exists. And like, it's just, there's several things that I would love to see on the big screen that I've always wanted to see. Drizzed, Warcraft. And when you get it, there's a party that's happy that you were able to get anything at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why a lot of the movie I'm glad I saw and I did enjoy. And I think that visually there's a lot of really awesome scenes, but it's just in retrospect it's sad because it's all we're ever going to get.
Yeah.
And it's just not the best bits of the Warcraft story. It starts in a fucked place.
It sweeps certain terminology and elements under the rug.
And it dates itself by tying itself up with Draenor, and then they changed that shit and like changed a lot of that moving forward with Legion, and even now with BFA. It's been forgotten, so it's kind of lost in the marketing and wrapping it up with the game expansion, and it's just sad, man.
Yep.
Anyway, that's it for us, everybody. Love ya. Till next time, stay awesome, stay safe, and as always,
take care, everyone.